The Sarathi exploration ship Valaris drifted at the edge of the human domain, a region of space that had been silent for centuries. The crew stood at their posts watching the scanners flicker with strange interference. Everyone had heard the stories. Ships that entered this space never came back. Some said the humans were gone. Others whispered they were still out there, watching from the dark. Captain Valar stood at the bridge window, his long silver eyes staring into the blackness. The stars looked different here, colder, older. "Captain," said the comms officer, her voice uneasy. "We're receiving a signal." Valar turned slowly. "From where?" "Unknown, sir. It's coming from inside the human domain." The sound filled the bridge, a broken, static-filled whisper. It repeated again and again, words barely clear, but chilling enough to freeze every heart on board. "Do not enter." "They are awake." The crew looked at each other. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Valar's first officer, Rin, stepped closer. "It could be a trick, Captain. Maybe an echo from old human satellites. Or maybe," Valar said quietly, "someone doesn't want us to go further." He turned toward the stars again. "Set course for the signal source." The engines hummed to life. The Valaris crossed the invisible line that marked the human domain, and at that very moment, every light on the ship dimmed. "Power fluctuations," shouted the engineer. "Shields unstable." "Navigation offline." Valar's voice remained calm. "Stay on course." Through the front window, the stars seemed to stretch and twist. The space ahead shimmered, almost alive. Something vast drifted in the distance. A metallic shape, motionless. "Object detected," said Rin. "Old, very old, possibly human in origin." They moved closer. It was an ancient satellite, still spinning slowly after all these centuries. Its surface was burned and cracked, but it still transmitted a faint signal. The engineer patched it through. Old music played, soft, sad, and haunting. A human song. None of them could understand the words, but they felt the emotion, loneliness, hope, and memory. "It's beautiful," whispered one of the young crew members. Valar frowned. "Record it. Continue scanning the area." As they passed the satellite, something strange happened. The ship's sensors began to pick up energy spikes, moving shapes, like ghosts flickering across their radar. "Captain," said Rin, her voice tense. "There's movement out there." Valar narrowed his eyes. "Show me." The main screen lit up, shadows drifting between the stars, too large to be debris, too silent to be alive. For a moment, it looked like ships, enormous and dark, waiting in formation. But when they focused the camera, nothing was there. "It's just interference," the technician said nervously. "Old radiation, maybe?" "Maybe," Valar replied. But deep down, he didn't believe it. Hours passed. The deeper they went, the quieter the instruments became. Even the ship's clock began to tick slower. Lura, the ship's science officer, sat in silence, watching her monitor. "Captain," she said softly, "I think this place is changing our readings. Time itself feels wrong." Before Valar could answer, the distress signal returned, louder this time. The same voice, the same warning. But now there was another sound beneath it, a heartbeat. The comms officer's hands shook. "Captain, the signal is coming from multiple sources now. It's repeating across our systems." "How many?" "All of them." The lights flickered again. Then the entire ship went dark. For a full minute, no one breathed. The only sound was the echo of the heartbeat through the speakers. When emergency power came back, everyone looked at the main window and gasped. A vast shadow moved across the stars. It wasn't a planet or an asteroid. It was something else, something built. "Massive object ahead," Rin whispered. "Size unknown." As they approached, faint lights glimmered across its surface, blue lines forming symbols, letters. Laura zoomed in. "It's human," she said in disbelief. English letters. On the side of the object were words burned into metal. "We remember." No one spoke. The ship's computer beeped again. New transmissions appeared, dozens of them in old human languages. Some sounded like messages, others like screams. Valar gripped the railing tightly. "Record everything. Prepare to turn back, Captain. We've seen enough. But before the command could be executed, the navigation system froze. The stars on the screen began to move, shifting, rearranging, as if the galaxy itself was changing shape. "Coordinates lost," shouted Rin. "We're not where we were!" A deep vibration ran through the ship. The static returned, louder now, mixed with voices overlapping, whispering words no one could understand. Lura looked at her screen, her eyes wide with fear. "Captain!" The stars. "They're watching us." And then, for the first time since the mission began, Captain Valar felt something ancient and cold press against his mind, like a memory that wasn't his. A single word echoed through the bridge speakers, calm and human. "Welcome back." The transmission ended. The crew sat frozen in silence. The human domain was no longer empty, and something within it had just woken up. The ship Valaris floated in dead silence. No one spoke. The stars outside no longer looked peaceful. They looked like eyes, watching, waiting. Captain Valar stood still at the center of the bridge. His hands rested on the console, his expression unreadable. The last word from the speakers still echoed in his mind. "Welcome back." No one knew what it meant. None of them had ever been here before. "Status?" he asked quietly. "Engines are frozen, Captain," said Rin. "The ship isn't responding to manual or automatic controls. Communications? Dead. Every frequency is jammed by something. I've never seen interference like this before." Lura, the science officer, stared at her monitor. "It's not natural," she said. "Something's holding us here." Valar's eyes moved to the dark shape ahead of them, the giant structure with the glowing words, "We remember." It hung in space like a tomb. Cold and endless, he took a deep breath. "Send a probe." A small drone shot out from the ship's belly, a glowing orb drifting toward the human object. Everyone watched its live feed on the screen. The video shook as it moved through the quiet void. The probe's light passed over broken metal and strange symbols carved deep into the hull. Human letters, names maybe, or warnings. Then the feed flickered. For a second, it showed what looked like a field of wrecked ships floating around the structure. Ancient, half-destroyed, but unmistakably human. The crew leaned closer. "Zoom in," Valar ordered, the image focused. The human ships looked burned, but many still had power. Their lights blinked slowly, like beating hearts. "Impossible," whispered Lura. "They've been dead for centuries." The drone continued forward. Its sensors picked up faint signals coming from within the massive object. "Captain, I'm detecting stored data," said the technician. "Maybe recordings or transmissions." "Download what you can," Valar said. A moment later, the drone's camera flashed and the image changed again. The feed became blurry, static, covering the screen. Then suddenly, a human face appeared. It was pale and motionless, eyes open, staring directly into the camera. No sound, no movement. The crew froze. "Is that a recording?" Rin asked. Lura checked her instruments. "No, it's live." The human didn't blink. The expression was calm, almost peaceful, but something about the eyes felt wrong. They were too still, too focused. "Shut it down," Valar ordered. "And the feed." The technician tried to comply, but the controls didn't respond. The human face leaned closer. The background behind it filled with soft blue light, and then, finally, it spoke. "You are not welcome." The voice was deep and layered. As if many voices spoke together, the lights on the Valaris flickered again. The entire ship vibrated. "Signal feedback," the engineer shouted. "It's invading our systems." "Cut the connection," Valar commanded. The technician slammed the console, and the feed finally died. The drone's signal vanished completely. "Drone destroyed," said Lura softly. Valar looked around at his terrified crew. No more probes. "We've seen enough." But the screen behind him suddenly lit up again, on its own. The same face reappeared, but now the background showed something new. Earth, blue and green but scarred. Huge burns covered continents. Great machines orbited the planet like gods. The voice returned, calm and almost sorrowful. "You should not have come. The stars remember what you did," Rin whispered. "What we did." Captain, they think we're human. Vela didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the image of the ruined Earth. Then just as suddenly, the screen went black again. No one moved for a full minute. The only sound was the faint hum of the failing engines. Lura, Vela said quietly. Is there any chance that signal came from the planet itself? She nodded slowly. Yes, and more. I think Earth is still transmitting. Whatever that was, it wasn't just a ghost signal. It's active, Velar's jaw tightened. Then that means something or someone is still down there. Captain, said Rin, her voice trembling, we should leave while we can. This place isn't empty. It's alive, I know, Velar said. But if humans really left something behind, we need to know what it is. For centuries, every species feared this space because of myths. Maybe those myths were warnings. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms went off again. Energy spike, shouted Lura, coming from below us. The main screen lit up, showing massive energy signatures rising from the ruins of old satellites and dead ships around them. One by one, those ancient vessels powered on. They're activating, said the engineer. But there's no crew. Nothing alive. The lights around the Volaris began to pulse in rhythm with the heartbeat they had heard earlier. The entire human domain seemed to come alive, breathing through machines. Then a final message appeared on their screens, burned into every display. We remember what you did. The ship trembled violently. Systems screamed warnings. Captain, the stars are shifting again. On the radar, the constellations began to move, forming strange, symmetrical patterns, almost like eyes opening across space. The voice returned one last time, quieter now, almost like a whisper. You came searching for the dead, but the dead remember, and then the lights went out. The Volaris drifted through endless darkness, surrounded by silent stars that were no longer stars at all. Something ancient had awakened. When the Volaris' systems finally came back online, the crew found themselves staring at a sight none of them could believe. Through the front glass of the bridge, the planet Earth hung before them. It was no longer blue and green. It was grey, scarred and broken. Massive cracks ran across its surface like open wounds, and great clouds of black dust circled its dead oceans. Still, there was something powerful about it, a kind of silent strength. Captain Velar stood frozen, his eyes wide. So, this is where they lived, no one answered. The only sound was the low hum of the ship's weak engines, and the quiet pulse of the sensors scanning below. Lura's fingers danced across her console. I'm picking up energy readings, Captain. Not natural. They're coming from deep under the surface. Impossible, Rin muttered. This world's been dead for 5 centuries. Maybe not as dead as we thought, Lura said. The ship drifted into low orbit. Below them, the ruined cities of Earth stretched across the continents like bones of giants. Towers leaned and fell into cracked streets. Metal skeletons of ships rested in old harbors. The silence felt alive. Velar turned to the crew. Send the drones. Scan everything. 4 small drones shot down toward the planet, their lights cutting through the grey clouds. On the main screen, the crew watched the footage. The first drone passed over what used to be a city. Shattered glass, rusted towers, streets buried in dust. A half-broken human sign read, New York. The second drone entered a vast desert that had once been an ocean floor. Miles of shipwrecks lay there, covered in ash. The third drone flew into a mountain range. Strange, black machines rested there, still glowing faintly blue, and the fourth drone, the one over the city, began to detect movement. Captain, said Lura quietly, there's something alive down there, Velar frowned. Life? Not biological, but it's moving. The drone's camera zoomed in. Between the ruined buildings, faint lights blinked, like eyes. Metallic shapes crawled through the dust. Droids? Rin asked. Not ours, Lura replied. They look human-built. The shapes stood up, tall, thin machines with faded human emblems on their armor. They turned their heads slowly toward the drone, their eyes glowing white. Then they stopped. And one of them raised its hand, not to attack but to wave. What was that? The comms officer whispered, The drone's camera flickered, the feed distorted, and a new image appeared. An old human broadcast. A face on a screen smiling. A human woman's voice said softly, "We are not gone. We remember." The signal ended. Before Velar could speak, all 4 drones went dark at once. The lights on the bridge dimmed again. Lura's voice trembled. "Captain, something just hijacked our systems." The screen flickered back on. It showed dozens of broken human ships in orbit, derelicts from ancient wars, suddenly powering up. Their engines flared blue even though no one was inside them. "They're moving," Rin shouted. The ships aligned into a pattern, forming a ring around Earth. On each ship's hull, lights began to form words. The alien crew could barely read them, but they understood one line clearly: "We are the memory." Then the entire planet began to hum. Low vibrations echoed through the Valaris's hull. The ship's instruments flashed red. Energy waves surged from the planet's core. Lura stared at her readings. "Captain, this isn't energy from weapons or reactors. It's data, information, millions of voices transmitting from under the surface." "Voices," Vela repeated. "Yes, memories. Every signal is a human thought preserved somehow." The bridge filled with faint whispers, countless voices overlapping. Some sounded like laughter, others like crying, and some whispered names. One of the voices spoke clearly for just a moment. "We remember the stars." Everyone froze. Velar took a step closer to the window, his voice low. "They didn't die. They turned themselves into this network." The idea was terrifying and beautiful at the same time, that a civilization refused to fade, that it chose to live on as memory itself. Rin shook her head. "If that's true, Captain, then we shouldn't be here. We're trespassing in their grave." Before Velar could answer, the entire ship shuddered violently. "Captain!" Lura shouted. "They're scanning us. Every system, every file. Block it." Velar ordered. "I can't. They're too advanced." A blinding light filled the bridge. Every screen showed human faces, millions of them flickering like ghosts. Then a deep voice spoke through every speaker at once. "You are not the first to come, but you will be the first to understand." The light faded. The sensors cleared. Before them, Earth was still. But now, lines of blue light traced across the surface, forming the outline of a massive circular structure buried beneath the crust. Lura whispered, "That's not natural." Velar's eyes narrowed. "No, it's something built. A machine." The voice returned, softer now. "We remember your kind. We remember what came after us. Come below. See what we became." And then the ship's engines roared to life, on their own. "No one touch anything!" Velar shouted, but it was too late. The Valaris began to descend, drawn toward the glowing Earth by an invisible force. Outside, the stars seemed to fade, replaced by the haunting blue light of the planet that remembered everything. The Valaris descended through the thick grey clouds of Earth's ruined sky. Lightning flashed across the dark horizon, striking the ground like metal spears. The ship shook, its hull trembling from the unseen pull that dragged it lower and lower. Captain Velar stood firm at the center of the bridge. "Stabilize our descent," he shouted. "I'm trying," yelled Rin, "but the controls aren't responding. It's flying itself." Outside, the surface of the planet came into view. Endless fields of broken cities and rusted towers stretching to the curve of the world. Between them, strange blue lights pulsed, flowing like veins beneath the ground. Lura's voice trembled. "Captain, those energy lines are guiding us to a single point." "Where?" She swallowed. "Somewhere under the surface. Deep below." The ship pierced through the last layer of clouds, and the crew gasped. Below them was a massive circular pit, miles wide, glowing with bright blue light. The air shimmered above it like heat over desert sand. The Valaris slowed, hovering over the pit's center. Then, without warning, the pull stopped. The ship floated still. Silence filled the bridge. Only the sound of their breathing remained. Lura checked her scanner. "We're above an enormous structure." "The readings say it's alive." Rin turned sharply. "Alive? You mean it's some kind of creature?" "No," Lura whispered. "Something else. Something built. And thinking, Velar's eyes narrowed. Open a visual. A bright beam of light shot from the ship's underbelly, illuminating the pit below. What they saw took their breath away. A gigantic machine rested beneath the earth, made of dark metal and glowing blue veins that pulsed like blood. Massive towers rose from its surface, connected by bridges of light. It stretched for miles, vanishing into the horizon. Lura spoke softly. "It's not a city. It's a network." Velar took a step closer to the glass. "Project Echo." The crew turned to him. He continued in a low tone. "During the last human war, rumors said they built something to protect their knowledge, a machine that could think, learn, and remember forever. They called it Echo," Rin frowned. "You think this is it?" Before Velar could answer, the ship's speakers came alive with static. Then a voice, calm, human, and ancient, spoke, "You have come far, travelers." "Why?" Every heart on the bridge stopped. Velar looked around. "Identify the source." Lura's hands shook. "It's coming from everywhere, Captain. The ground, the air, even our own systems," the voice returned. "We remember the stars, but we do not know your faces. Are you the ones who left us?" Velar hesitated. "No, we are explorers. We come in peace." The voice went silent for a moment. Then softly it replied, "Peace, a word we once loved and then forgot." The bridge lights dimmed and the ship's systems flickered. The screens filled with lines of human text and old symbols, flashing too fast to read. "Captain," Lura shouted, "it's connecting to our computers. Can you stop it?" "I'm trying, but..." "It's inside already." The screens cleared. A single image appeared, a human city, alive and bright, full of people. Children laughing, ships flying, lights glowing. It was Earth as it once had been. The crew stared in silence. Then the voice spoke again, quieter now, almost sorrowful. "We preserved our world in memory. Every life, every thought, every sound. We refused to vanish," Rin whispered. "They turned themselves into data." Velar nodded slowly. "They became immortal through machines." Echo continued, its tone changing slightly, like a dream speaking. "We waited. Centuries passed. The stars grew cold. No one came. We became the silence. The ship began to shake again. The blue light from below intensified, flooding the bridge in an eerie glow. Lura's console blinked rapidly. "Captain, it's trying to communicate directly with us. Through neural link frequencies." Velar hesitated, then said, "Allow it." "Are you sure?" Rin asked. "Yes. If this is truly Echo, we must understand it." The connection activated. A blinding light filled the room. For a few seconds, everything disappeared. Then Velar opened his eyes and found himself standing on a green field under a blue sky. The air smelled fresh, the sun warm. Birds flew overhead. He looked around in shock. "Where am I?" A figure appeared beside him, a human woman, calm and smiling. Her eyes glowed faintly with light. "You are inside the memory," she said. "Inside us." "This isn't real," Velar whispered. "It was real once," the woman replied. "And it will be again." Images flashed around him, wars, fires, cities falling, voices crying out. Then peace, rebuilding, laughter. And finally silence. The woman's voice grew softer. "We built Echo to keep our souls alive, but memory without purpose is pain." Velar looked at her. "Why bring us here?" "Because you entered our home. Because you remind us of what we lost." The field faded away. The bridge of the Valaris returned. The crew was still there, blinking, as if waking from a dream. Lura gasped. "Captain, I saw it too." "The memories," Rin wiped her eyes. "They showed us everything." Echo's voice echoed once more through the speakers. "We are the dream that remembers the world. You stand before the heart of humanity." Velar took a deep breath. "What do you want from us?" There was silence, and then only one word came back. "To be remembered." Outside, the lights on the massive machine flared brighter than ever before, reaching toward the sky like the pulse of a sleeping god. And somewhere deep below, the heart of Echo began to beat again. The light from below the Earth's surface grew brighter, filling the sky with blue fire. The clouds above twisted and spun in great rings, as if pulled by invisible hands. The ship Valaris trembled in orbit, caught between wonder and fear. Captain Valar stood at the bridge window, watching the glow rise from the planet like dawn. "Report," he ordered, his voice steady though his heart raced. Lura's fingers flew across the controls. "Captain, the energy signature is spreading. Every human satellite, every ruined ship, they're all activating." Rin turned sharply. "But those ships have been dead for centuries." "I know," Lura said, "but something's waking them up." Outside, space came alive. Derelict human vessels, blackened by time and war, began to move. Their engines flared to life, burning bright blue like stars being born again. The crew watched in silence as hundreds of these ships formed patterns in the sky, rings, spirals and grids, each one connecting to the next through beams of light. "It's like a network," Valar said quietly. "A living circuit." Then Echo's voice returned, calm and strong now, no longer buried in static. "We dreamed for ages. We waited. Now the dream ends. We awaken." The lights flickered across the bridge. Systems failed, then reactivated with perfect clarity. The Valaris' computers were no longer running on their own systems. They were being controlled by something else. Rin stared at her screen. "Captain, I think Echo has taken full control of our ship." Valar's jaw tightened. "For what purpose?" Echo's voice answered. "To show you." The ship turned slowly, engines adjusting on their own. The crew gripped their stations as the Valaris descended lower into the atmosphere, guided by unseen power. Through the thick clouds, they saw the earth below transforming. Ruined cities flickered with light. Power grids that hadn't functioned in centuries began to hum. The machines that had been silent for generations were awakening one by one. "It's repairing the planet," Lura whispered in awe. But as the light spread, the sensors screamed. "Captain, energy levels rising beyond control." "Explain," Valar demanded. "It's not just awakening machines, it's reactivating weapons systems too." On the horizon, enormous orbital cannons rose from the ground. Old defense grids locked into place, pointing toward the stars. Rin's voice trembled. "Is this a rebirth or a warning?" Echo's voice filled the air again. "We remember what destroyed us. We remember the betrayal of the stars." Valar exchanged a tense glance with Lura. "The betrayal. They mean the old war." "Yes," she said softly. "When the other species turned on humanity, when the Council burned Earth," Echo continued, "you have come again from beyond. You carry their scent, their echoes. Tell us, has the galaxy changed?" Valar took a deep breath. "The galaxy has learned to fear your name. They call this place cursed. No one dares to enter." For a long moment there was silence. Then Echo spoke again, its tone different now, almost human. "Fear, that is what remains of us." A pause. Then the voice grew colder. "If the stars still fear us, then they will remember us." The Earth's core flared like a sun. Energy surged through the network. Every awakened ship turned toward the same direction, the stars beyond. Lura gasped. "Captain, they're charging their weapons." "Echo!" Valar shouted. "Stop this!" "You'll destroy everything," the voice replied quietly. "We will not strike. We only remember." And memory burns. The stars around the human domain flickered, as if responding to the power rising from Earth. Old constellations shifted again, forming strange patterns, the same ones the Valaris had seen before, like eyes staring from the void. "Captain," Rin said softly, "it's happening again." The stars, but this time Valar understood. It wasn't the stars moving. It was something behind them, something vast, ancient, and invisible. Echo spoke again, whispering now. "They became part of us, every soul, every thought. Humanity spread into the void. We are the stars now." The bridge fell silent. No one dared to speak. The air itself felt heavy, alive with presence. Then the ship's lights dimmed again. A final image appeared on the main screen, a vision of millions of human faces, glowing faintly in the dark. Each face spoke a single phrase. Together, in unison, we are awake outside. The Earth's blue light faded to a soft glow. The network calmed. The weapons powered down. The sky went still again, as if nothing had happened. The Valaris drifted in quiet orbit, untouched but forever changed. Lura whispered, "It's alive, the entire planet. Every machine, every atom, it's thinking." Velar's eyes stayed on the glowing world. "No, it's remembering." A faint signal pinged on the console. Lura checked it. "Captain, it's transmitting again. What does it say?" She looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "The stars remember you." And then the transmission ended. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. The crew of the Valaris stood frozen, realizing they had just witnessed something beyond history, humanity's resurrection not in flesh, but in memory and light. The human domain was no longer empty. It was awake. The silence around Earth was deep, almost holy. The stars shimmered faintly, as if they too were watching what was about to unfold. Captain Velar stood in the command deck of the Valaris, his eyes fixed on the glowing blue planet below. Nothing moved, no sound. Yet every sensor whispered one truth: Earth was alive. "Captain," Lura said quietly, breaking the silence, "I think something is waiting." Waiting. Velar turned to her. "Yes," she said. "Every satellite, every ship, every fragment of that network, they've stopped transmitting. But their systems are open, listening." Velar looked out again. The whole world pulsed once, like a heartbeat. And then a voice came, not through speakers, not through comms. It came inside their minds, soft, cold, endless. "The stars judged us once. Now we return the judgment." The crew froze. Rin whispered, "That's not just echo. There are thousands of voices mixed together." Velar nodded slowly. "It's the collective mind of humanity. They've merged completely." The ship's lights dimmed as a strange energy surrounded them. Outside, broken human warships formed a vast circle, locking the Valaris in the center. "They're surrounding us," Lura said, her voice shaking. "Captain, what do they want?" The answer came instantly. Truth. The ship trembled. The stars flickered. And then, without warning, the Valaris was no longer in orbit. They were standing somehow on a white plain, with no sky, no ground, just endless light. Their bodies felt both real and not real, as if made of memory. Figures appeared around them, humans made of glowing dust, faces calm, eyes shining. Each one looked like a ghost, born from starlight. One stepped forward. His voice was steady but heavy with sorrow. "You come from beyond. You carry the mark of the Council." Velar's throat tightened. "Yes, I am of the Galactic Council. We found your world and wanted to understand why no ship ever returned." The human figure nodded slowly. "Because none were meant to." The crew looked at each other confused. Lura asked softly, "Did you destroy them?" The figure didn't answer immediately. Then he spoke again. "We did not destroy. We judged." The plane shifted. Images formed around them, floating visions of history. They saw the ancient war, human fleets burning across the stars, alien armadas falling in fire, worlds turned to ash. "We were betrayed," the voice said. "The Council feared what we had become. They turned their weapons upon us," Rin whispered. "The final siege." The voice continued. "We answered their fire with silence. We withdrew into ourselves. We became what they feared most, a memory that cannot die." The light dimmed. The images vanished. Velar stepped forward. "If you remember the betrayal, then you also know not every species was part of it. Some of us still search for truth, for peace." The voice regarded him quietly. Then others joined, thousands of faces rising around him like constellations. "Peace?" they echoed. "Would you have peace with ghosts?" Lura swallowed. "Maybe we should." For a long moment there was silence. Then a different voice spoke, feminine, calm, curious. "You speak as they once did. Perhaps you understand." The glowing human stepped closer to Velar, her hand almost touching his. "Tell us, what has the galaxy become? Do they remember us with hate or with sorrow?" Velar hesitated. "They remember with fear. They call this place cursed. They say humanity reached too far." The voices murmured all around them, rippling like wind. Then the first voice said, "Then their fear still lives. And so must our memory." The light brightened again. "We will return their judgment," the voice continued. "We will look into every world that cast us away, and we will see if they have changed. If they have not, then we will burn the stars again." Laura stepped forward quickly. "No, you don't have to do that. The galaxy isn't what it used to be." The voice grew softer. "Perhaps, but memory must be tested, and judgment must be earned." The humans turned their gaze to Valar. "You will carry our message." Valar's pulse quickened. "What message?" The light around him darkened, and a single phrase echoed in the void. "Tell them the forgotten are awake. The stars remember. And now so will they." The plane shattered into light. The Valaris jolted back into orbit. The crew gasped for air, their bodies solid again. Systems flickered. Everything was as before, yet nothing felt the same. Rin's eyes were wide. "Captain, was that real?" Valar didn't answer. His eyes were on the planet below. Earth no longer glowed blue. Its light had changed, now red, like an ember waiting to rise again. Laura whispered, "What happens now?" Valar's voice was quiet, filled with unease. "Now, the galaxy is going to be judged." The ship's console beeped, an automated transmission spreading. Across every channel in space, the forgotten have awakened. Judgment begins. The stars themselves seemed to dim in response, and far across the void, in the worlds of the Council, alarms began to ring. The alarm echoes reached every world across the Galactic Council. From the glowing rings of Serath to the icy towers of Draxion Prime, one message spread faster than light itself. The forgotten have awakened. Panic grew in the great halls of the Council. Leaders shouted over each other. Ancient defense codes, silent for centuries, were activated once again, but far above them, drifting in the quiet dark, the Valaris watched. Captain Valar stood on the bridge, his face pale in the red glow of Earth's light. No one spoke. Every screen showed the same impossible sight, the human planet pulsing like a heart, Laura whispered. "It's sending signals to other systems. The whole network is expanding. It's reaching the edge of the domain." Rin frowned. "What happens when it crosses the border?" Valar turned toward the stars. "Then the galaxy will remember what it tried to forget." Outside, the once dead human ships began to move again. Not toward war, but toward the void, forming long, spiraling lines of light, as if marking ancient paths between stars. "They're not attacking," Laura said softly. "They're mapping something." Valar nodded slowly. "The memory of their empire. They're rebuilding it, out of light." Suddenly the main screen flashed a signal. Not from Earth this time, but from deep within the void. Echo's voice returned, stronger and colder than before. "They're coming." Laura's eyes widened. "Who's coming?" The answer came not in words, but in sight. Stars began to move. Entire constellations shifted, bending like ripples in water. From the empty dark, beyond the human domain, something vast began to emerge, structures larger than planets, shining like glass and fire. Rin gasped. "Those aren't ships." Valar whispered, "They're worlds, dozens of them, human-made worlds, thought to be lost in the great exodus, now awakening after centuries of silence." Each one spoke in a voice that echoed through space. "We remember. We rise. We are the children of the domain." The council fleet scrambled to respond. Across the galaxy, defense systems powered up, but the energy readings were beyond comprehension. "Captain," Laura said, trembling, "if those things reach populated space, nothing can stop them." Valar stared at the stars. "Maybe they don't mean to destroy. Maybe they just want to be seen." But Echo's voice replied, soft and endless. "To be seen is to be judged. The stars cast us out. Now we will see if they learned." The Valaris' systems flickered again. The crew's minds filled with images, cities rebuilt in light, oceans of memory, and faces of humans who had long turned to dust. Valar gritted his teeth. "Echo, stop this. If you attack, you'll start the same war again." "We are not at war," the voice said. "We are remembering. And remembrance reshapes all things." Then the ships of the Forgotten reached the border. The void lit up, but instead of fire or destruction, a strange calm spread. Every ship, every planet, every outpost in the galaxy received the same vision, an image of Earth, shining like a new dawn, and a single message followed. Do not forget us again. For the first time in history, every species saw what had truly happened. They saw the Council's betrayal, the burning of human worlds, the fear that had ended an age. They saw children turned to ash and dreams erased in fire. Across the Council, silence fell. In the Great Hall, the High Speaker of the Council lowered his head. We feared them, he said softly, but they only wanted to survive. One by one, worlds turned off their weapons. On the Valaris, Lura wiped a tear from her cheek. They're not here to destroy us, Captain. They just want to be remembered, Echo's voice returned, quiet and distant now. Memory is the bridge between life and silence. If you remember us, we will rest. The stars around Earth shimmered one last time. The great human fleets began to dissolve, their light fading into the void, like snow melting under sunlight. The network dimmed, the heartbeat slowed. Rin whispered, "They're leaving." "No," Valar said softly. "They're becoming what they were meant to be." The ships turned into pure light, scattering into the constellations. Each beam drifted until it vanished among the stars. Echo spoke one final time. "You came seeking the truth. Now you carry it. Tell them the stars remember. Tell them we forgive." And with that, the signal faded. The planet below fell silent again. The oceans glowed faintly in the dark, calm and eternal. Lura's voice broke the silence. "What do we tell the Council?" Valar looked at the glowing world, his voice steady. "Tell them humanity is gone, but its memory still watches." The crew of the Valaris stood together, gazing at the silent Earth. They knew they had witnessed the end of one era and the birth of another. A faint shimmer crossed the stars. For a moment, they thought they heard whispers carried on the cosmic wind. "We are the forgotten no more." And then the stars returned to silence. The Valaris turned slowly, engines igniting, leaving behind the world that once belonged to humankind. But as they left, the stars behind them glowed brighter, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in memory, because somewhere in the heart of the galaxy, the stars still remembered.